Hey guys, today I am here with you with a real interview question, coding question. One of the guys I mentor had an interview a couple of days ago, and he got a question very similar to this. I modified a couple of things here and there to make it different, but essentially 95% of what's needed to finish the coding assignment is here. So that should give you a decent idea of a coding interview for a DevOps role. And as I've been saying before, nowadays, even for a coding interview for a DevOps role, the employers are asking you to do real software kind of coding, like algorithms and whatnot. So he was given a choice of Python or whatever language, and he chose Go. But anyway, so let's understand the problem first. It's not super intuitive, so let's start with that. So first of all, um, you're given this data set. It's a 10 by 2 array or slice, and it has on the first column just first names. On the second column, it has a free form um, string that has multiple things, multiple words in it. Um, for example, it has the type of the player. It could be catcher, bowler, whatever, and then which team they're on, and whether they're high pay, low pay, or free agent. And again, it can be anything. It can be a fourth criteria for that matter, because what we're asked to do, and you will see that in a second, is write a function that returns the first names of what matches, and that matching could be anything, right? And these order here doesn't have to be the data. It can look like let's say the first one, Alice, and then instead of catcher Dodgers high pay, it could be high pay catcher Dodgers. It doesn't. You can't rely on the fact that there's order to this in the second column of the data set. All right. So that's what the data is. Now you're supposed to write a function that you can call with some of these criteria. So I will show you what one kind of looks like. So let's say that we say um, get names, right? And you're going to give it the data set of it's one of the parameters, but also you're going to give it something like a string or more than one string. Let's say batter, right? Um, and you can leave it at that, or you can say batter and um, Dodgers, right? You can leave it at that, or you can even give it more criteria. You can say low pay, right? Low pay. So you have to take into account that these number strings here could vary from 0 to 3, right? So that's how we're going to call it. So let's leave this here because we're going to have to use this later to test our function. So yeah, that's right. So now, what is it complaining about? Yeah. So here's the function, and in the function, you're not given any definition. You have to change the definition yourself to in Java they call it constructor. I think in Golang they call it signature. So you have to create your own signature for this function. So how do we do this? First of all, to think about this, right? You have to loop through this data set, right? Once at least anyway, because you have to read all the data. But also, while you're looping through this, you have to loop through what criteria have been given to you. For each one, you have to make sure that these strings exist in in a given row, right? So that the key thing here is screaming a variadic function. What is a variadic function? Is you're looking at one already. So for example, this if we do fmt.println, right? For example, println. What you see is you can give this println function as many strings as you want. It can be 0 or 10, right? So your function has to implement that, and that's called a variadic function in Golang. And it's actually pretty easy, and as I will show you. But again, the idea is you have to catch that that's what's needed, because otherwise you cannot control how many strings you're sent from the main function to your function. So that's how you catch that, and I'll show you that in just a minute. So we leave that here as is because you're going to use that. So now what are we going to take in as an argument? First of all, we have to give it the data set. That's just a given. You have to have the data set in there. So, and that data set is going to be any length, but the second dimension is only 2 because it only has 2 columns. And each element in there is string. So data and then 2 and string. Okay, that's one for one thing. But before I go any further, I need to show you that we have to use the strings package, because that's what gives us a really good number of functions that we can call instead of having to write it ourselves. So we're going to use one of the functions, and you'll see in a minute. Okay, so the second one we need to bring in is this is the variadic part, right? So we give it a name. Let's say we call it match these, for example. Match these. That's the name I'm going to give it. These. And this is n number of strings is what it is, right? It could be 0, it could be 3 or 5, whatever. So we're giving the function 2 arguments, the data set and n number of strings. Now it's complaining here, expected semicolon. What the heck? Okay, hold on. Get names, data, which is, oh, sorry. That's the name, and the type is blank to string. Do we not need the comma? Is that what it is? Okay. And what is this then? Expected. Why would expect? Oh, I think something went wrong here. Package main. No, that's okay. Why is it complaining about semicolon? Func get names, data. It's an array of 2 dimension of strings. That's fine. Oh, you don't need that. You should need a comma there. There, that's better. So first argument is this, and this data set is going to come in, and the second is a number of string that's going to come in to match. Okay, so now we're at the function. We're going to loop through the data, obviously. So for, let's say, index of data through the range of, so range basically means start to finish, right? Range of data. So we're going to loop through all of data, and we're going to keep track of the index because we're going to need that. And what are we going to do with it? So for each row of data, we're going to check each of these strings that have been passed on to the function using this variable here. So one more for loop. For now, this time we're going to say index match these, just so we can distinguish between the index of data and index of match of this set of strings that have been given. Index for, and again, it's a range of this time over match these, right? We're gonna loop over how many ever strings we've been given to match. Okay. Now we have that. What do we do with it? So now we're gonna compare, right? We're gonna see if, and this is where the strings package comes in. Strings package already has a built-in function called contains, right? It takes in 2 parameters. One is the string, the larger string where you're going to look for the substring. And in our case, that's going to be data, and it's going to be the second column of data. So for each of this row, which is denoted by index data, And then the second argument is going to be, the column is going to be 1. 1 means 2 in this case because it starts with 0. Now let's see. Sometimes I wish VS Code didn't try to help me. So if, okay, that data index data 1, that's fine. And I need a second argument. And that are, this one throws me off all the time. In Golang, this is how you index multidimensional. Oh, for crying out loud. Okay. So data, index data, and 1. So for each row, look at the second column. That's what this means, right? So now we're going to say we're going to compare this with what? We're going to compare with each of these, match these strings, right? So you're going to say match these, and index is going to be this second index because we're looping through that. Okay, so that is the end of that test, right? If we match, right, then, before we do that, we have to do this. We're going to return something called result. So we're going to define that. Var result is a one-dimensional slice or array, right, of strings. That's what's going to get back from the function. Those will be the first names that we're going to get back, the ones that match, right? So in the beginning, it's just empty. Now, the way the logic is going to work is in the beginning of, so let's define this variable first. Let's say do not add. And now you will see why that is the case here. Do not add to result. It's a Boolean value, right? What's going to happen is as soon as, okay, so this returns true or false if it contains, right? If it doesn't contain, so in this case, false. So if there's one match that didn't happen, so let's say that when we called it with batter and the batter didn't match, immediately that means that this particular row is not going to get added to the result, right? Because there's already a failure of matching. So if this is false, that means it's failed. So then we're going to say do not add is now true, because this particular row, this particular first name, we're not going to add to the end result because already there's a mismatch. It didn't match. If it goes through this whole for loop, right, and all the matching happened, that means none of these were false, right? Each one that we looped through was a match for a given row, right? That means we can then add result equals, so we can append to result. What are you going to add? We're going to add the first name, which is the first for the given index of data. We're going to add the first column, which is the first name. So we're going to add append result data index. Yep, that's what we're going to add. And when we're all done with it, we're going to return result. Okay, so let's go over the logic again. Why is it complaining? Do not add result. Declare not used. I used it. Do not add result equals true. If string do not add result. Oh, we have to put a test here. If it's still true. If do not add result equals true, only then, no, equals false, right? That means it remains, everything matched is what this means. And we don't need that. This is gonna come here. Okay, so at first, anytime there's no match, do not add becomes true, and therefore we do not add. But if all after we've gone through all the ones that have been given to match, right? given to match, and each one of them matched. That means the do not add result remained false. And if it remained false, then we can go ahead and add it to our end result. I don't see any more syntax errors. So let's test. Let's test with simple data first. So we're going to say, give us all the batters, right? Let's save the file. Let's run the run. Ooh, that didn't work. Okay, because we have a few batters here. Eve, Ivy, them. So we should get those back. So something is went wrong with the logic. Okay. So do not add. Index is go over all of data. Go for each row, match each of the match these. And if index if it contains, that means if it doesn't contain, that means it's false. It's not going to work. Do not add becomes true. And if do not add is false, only then you add it. That's index data 0. That looks right, but maybe it's in the wrong place. For index match, we should add it for each. That looks right to me. What's going on? Get names better. Did you spell? No. So if this is still broken, if we say giants, we should still get an empty, which would mean it's broken still. Ready? Yeah, still broken. So what's going on? Maybe we need to give it a value. In the beginning, it will be false. Means by default, we assume everything will be a match until there is no match. Let's save that, run that. Oh. Now I know. Because we have to set it to false in the beginning of each row. That's what it is. Do not add equals false. In the beginning, we assume it's going to be a match until there's no match. And that's for each row. That's what it is. Okay, so now if we run it, it should work. There you go. So who do we have for giants? We have Bob, David, Ivy. That's what you got. Now let's add some more constraints. Let's say we also want to look for low pay. Right? Save that, run it. Out of these three, Bob, David, and Ivy, who are giants, only Ivy is low pay. Is that true? Ivy is low pay. Bob is free agent, and David is high pay. So that makes sense. Now let's add one more criteria. Let's say we say batter, right? Comments. Okay. It should be empty, I think. No, Ivy. Is Ivy a batter? Ivy is a batter, giants, and low pay. So that's a good match. That looks like it's working. One very interesting thing about this function is so flexible, right? We can add another funny thing, like something crazy, which you'll never match, right? And we just added one more. We had 4 strings to match now. Of course, it will fail, but the function will still work, right? Not only that, if we misspell something, it should not match anything, and which is what you would expect because there's no match. So the function is flexible in that way. Okay, so that function is working. Let's put it back to normal again. So we have some result to show. So anyway, that came from somebody I coach from an interview that he attended, and this problem is 95% same I just changed the data around a little bit so it doesn't look like the exact same problem. I hope you found this to be useful. This was a real coding interview question that came for a, in fact, it was for a senior SRE role is what it was. So if you, just so you know, when I was doing this, it took me an hour to figure this out with help from ChatGPT. So this was not an easy problem compared to my abilities of coding. Okay, I hope you found this useful, and I'll see you in the next video.